It's an appeal decision from earlier this year in Shrewsbury.
Yes.
That's the one. That's the one. If you turn in it to page 7 of the decision, if that's okay.
Yes.
There's a section that begins extensive benefits of the proposed development, and the first topic is housing need for older people. And at the bottom of page 7, there's a topic housing with care, and it goes on. At the top of page 8, paragraph 44, the inspector there describes the situation in this way. She says the council predominantly relies on the use of prevalence rates based on over 75s to determine the need for specialised older persons housing. I suppose that's the same situation as here. So there's a difference between us as to what the prevalence rate should be. However, I consider this approach as fundamentally flawed. It presupposes at a fixed point in time that the level of older persons housing and nursing care provision was appropriate to provide the optimum choice of tenure, care, and housing needs for Shropshire's elderly population. Do you see?
Yeah.
And at 47, she says she prefers the appellant's methodology, which is based on housing in later life, which is another one of the housing LIN documents.
Yes.
Now let's just dwell on what's being said there. The fundamental flaw in the council's approach in that case was to presuppose that at a fixed point in time, the level of older persons housing and nursing care provision was appropriate to provide optimum choice.
I'd agree with that, and I'd say paragraph 45 sets out the inspector's view, like the qualitative assessment.
Yes, yeah, quite. But we've agreed that, yeah, absolutely, there was no qualitative assessment. But the approach taken here by you and the council, it follows exactly the same logic. You presuppose at a fixed point in time, that fixed point in time is 2011 in this case, that the level of older persons in nursing care accommodation, i.e. in 2011 in Basildon, was appropriate to provide optimum choice.
I don't consider we stopped there. I consider that was our starting point, and we also looked at qualitative supply through our engagement with Essex County Council.
Now hang on, I'm not asking you about supply at the moment. All I'm asking about at the moment is requirement, and your figure of requirement, which is 19 beds, care beds a year, that is exclusively a product of the prevalence rate that has been identified in the email.
I'd say that's correct.
Okay, so we will come to supply and what you've talked to Essex about, but I'm only asking you at the moment about need. And on this, your approach to need, quote, presupposes at a fixed point in time, i.e. 2011, that the level of older persons housing was appropriate to provide optimum choice. That's the presupposition.
Yes.
Do you make the same presupposition here that the council made in this appeal decision?
In that respect, yeah, I do.
And the inspector decided in that case that that presupposition was, quote, fundamentally flawed and preferred an approach based on the shop.
I agree.
Okay. Okay, thank you. We're going to come to supply now, but before we do, to try and put the issue of supply into context for our inspector, if target demand is not 32 in 1,000, as Turley said, based on 2011, if it's actually 110 in 1,000 based on all the more recent work, if target supply prevalence rates 110 in 1,000, you've got no evidence of what the need actually is.
I would say if that was the case, then I would agree.
And you've also got no evidence on whether the council has adequate supply in order to meet that need.
if it was determined that that was an inappropriate methodology, then we would need to relook at both need and consequently what the supply is. Are we saying the same thing?
I think we are. I don't, and again, that might sound like a criticism, but it's not. You're relying on the Turley schma that you've been given. But I think we've agreed that Turleys appear to have fallen into exactly the same trap that the council did in this Shrewsbury appeal decision, that the inspector there considered to be fundamentally flawed.
I would say, I would agree that that is the starting point. As talked about in my evidence previously, I would say that we then looked in addition to the need as to what the current.
Yeah, I looked at supply, so we are coming to supply, but again, let's just be absolutely clear about it. The entirety of your needs case is predicated on that 19 care beds a year. That's all your needs case is.
I would say that is what we assess our future needs to be. Yes.
Yeah, and that, if that's fundamentally flawed, we're in trouble, because if it turns out that it's not 19 beds a year, but it's many, many more because of a higher prevalence rate, you've got no evidence that your supply meets that increased need.
I would say, if that rate is not right, we don't have evidence.
Okay, thank you very much. You don't, but we do. So Mr. Tennant has produced lots of evidence on this. In his proof on page 58, page 58, he's got a subheading called Need for Care Bed Spaces.
Yes.
And he applies the prevalence rates, not from Turley's, but from the Shop Act toolkit. Do you see?
Yes.
That's it, sorry, this table 20, that's what he's doing. And he identifies on the basis of that exercise a current shortfall of, this is the, what is it, fourth row along, current shortfall in total bed spaces of 970 bed spaces.
I'm sorry, can I ask?
Don't worry, I will, so if you've got table 20.
Oh, apologies.
No, don't worry at all, don't worry.
Yes, table.
So this is how it works. He's in the first row, sorry, let me get this right, the first column, he's set out what are the Shop Act prevalence rates that we've seen already. 66 for 1,000 for residential care, 45 for nursing care, 111 overall in 1,000. Those are the prevalence rates.
Yes.
He's looked at supply and demand, demand calculated in accordance with those prevalence rates, and identifies a shortfall that exists at the moment on the basis of those prevalence rates that you don't accept of 970 bed spaces. Do you see?
Yes.
And he's then identified an additional demand up to 2043 which will lead to a total shortfall by 2043 of 1,845 bed spaces.
I would say with this, with table 20, I'm not clear where the figure in, if I termed it column, the current supply column.
Okay.
I'm not sure where that figure has been
Okay.
derived from.
Righto. We can.
So consequently.
Okay, righto. So you will have to ask him then about that if you're not clear on it. In terms of the demand side of the equation, he's looked at demand in the context of the Shop Act tools he explains. You've obviously not done that, so you don't challenge any of the demand side of his equation here, assuming that the inspector decides to think about the Shop Act prevalence rates.
I don't challenge the principle of the demand set out in the demand per 1,075. I can see where the 111 figure has been derived from. I'm not clear how that then translates into the current demand.
Okay, well again, you can be asked
I think
about
population.
or whatever the figures are in terms of current shortfall and shortfall to 2043, there's no plan-led approach at the moment to meet any of those needs.
I'd agree. Beyond the supply that is currently in.
Well, plan-led.
The two, yeah.
Plan-led. I mean, there's no plan-led approach, whether it's whatever it is, 1,000, 2,000, 500, whatever it is. There's no plan-led approach at the moment to actually sorting it out. We hope will be, obviously, down the line, but there won't be for a few years at least. Yeah?
Yes.
Now, let's turn to supply then. Supply, if you take Mr. Tennant's evidence from page 59, talks about supply. It's got a heading 7.6 called supply at page 59.
Page 59, 7.6, yes.
Supply. Now. No. He looks at historic supply. And at table 23, taking the last 6 years or last 6 year monitoring years, the units of the care beds, residential care beds or nursing care beds, number of those which have been delivered in the borough is 0.
At the point of the end of this table, 2021, 2022, that's correct. In 2022, 2023, 2 new care homes were delivered.
Okay.
To the
Which we'll come to. Okay, so we'll come to them in a sec. But those figures over the previous 6 years, you obviously you accept they come from the AMRs for the council.
Yes.
Now, looking forwards, if you like, or looking into the more recent past, which you've just been talking about, there's this table 24 on page 61.
Yeah.
Actually, before we get there, sorry, just page 60. There's the heading where we were, sorry, just before, planned supply of older persons housing in Basel.
Yeah.
And he notes at 7.6.4, the council's awarded planning permission for 3 sites since 2020. You see?
Yes.
2 of these have involved the demolition of an existing larger facility, resulting in the net loss of bed spaces at these sites.
Yeah.
And as I understand it, you accept all of that. I mean, that is all as a matter of fact, that's all correct.
We accept in the case of 2 of those facilities, they weren't delivering any new units.